Thank you. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the March 9th, 2022 regular school committee meeting at 5:34 p.m. At this time, I would entertain a motion to convene executive session to discuss strategies with respect to collective bargaining with employee groups and/or ongoing litigation and discuss personnel matters. The school committee will reconvene the school committee in an open session following the executive session. The additional purpose of executive session will also include the approval of previous executive committee meeting sessions and the collective bargaining with the Teamsters, ratification on the school committee side for the nurses in the Tewksbury Public School System. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to enter into executive session. Mr. Parsons, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mrs. Garabedian, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Stadman, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. We will reconvene a regularly scheduled school committee meeting, starting with the public hearing on the budget at 6 p.m. Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to reconvene the February 9th, 2022 school committee meeting at 6:03 p.m. At this time, we're going to move on to our public hearing on the budget. I'm going to turn it over to our business manager, Mr. David Libby.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
And welcome to the FY23 Tewksbury Public Schools budget hearing. This is our third public hearing or workshop on the budget. And we appreciate the opportunity to present to the community our approach to the school budget. We start the every year with our district strategy and theory of action. These are our tenets that we developed with the district leadership team and are in conjunction with the school committee. I'm not going to read those. I usually read them at the beginning of the meeting, but in the interest of time, I'll move on from those. We've been over those a few times, but basically we try to keep those in mind when we make our decisions regarding spending and directions of the budget. When we talk about the school budget, it consists of four major parts, three of which are managed by the schools. Our salary, which obviously our wages, which represents most of our budget. The education business is the people business. Wages and salaries paid to our full-time, part-time employees is represented by our salaries. Our operating budget is other expenses that we incur in our operation, general and instructional supplies, technology and technology contracts, transportation contracts, utilities, other contracted services, anywhere from special education services to plumbing, roofing, things that we need on our buildings. And also in the operating budget would be tuition to our out-of-district schools. Capital outlay is the third part of our budget that we manage. It's a smaller piece of our budget, but important. It's larger projects for to support our buildings or the district. We want to try to keep our buildings in good shape over the long term so that they sustain life for and a nice environment for student learning and teaching as we progress through the years. Other costs that are managed and shared with the town we refer to as fixed costs. These are things such as health and building insurance, retirement costs that we incur for our employees, debt, both long-term and short-term debt, Medicare expenses, unemployment expenses, and things that we share in common with the town are called our fixed costs. For the purposes of our presentation tonight, we'll be focusing on the three areas of salary, operating, and capital outlay. This slide is challenges we faced in formulating the FY23 budget, particular to this year. On the left-hand side is what the typical year, what we do in a typical year, and the right-hand side are the challenges that were specific to FY23 for us. Very first one that we faced was a traditional 7-school model is what we typically follow. FY23 we'll see the opening of our new Center Elementary School, which is a very exciting time for the district, but it is a lot of work at the same time. It represents the relocation of all grade 2, 3, and 4 students and associated personnel mid-year, next year. In January is when the building is scheduled to be open. So all resources associated with this move to create the initial salary and operating budget for the new school. So that's quite an undertaking that is ongoing as we approach the end of this fiscal year. Typical year, we use prior year's actuals to determine needs and our budget opportunities. We're under budget in some area. We may move some money into certain other areas that where we might have been close to or over budget in other areas. Due to COVID, during the school year 2021, operations were far from normal, so spending trends and patterns were atypical, so it was difficult to use those actuals to predict anything going forward. And also no actuals existed for the Center Elementary School, so that made it impossible to use actuals in that fashion. So we were forced to use estimates and models of existing buildings to come up with numbers for our Center Elementary School. Normally we use payroll records to roll forward staff. During year 2021 and 21-22, we had a high number of one-year hires and grant-funded positions. So we just wanted to make sure, we needed to make sure we had those people accounted for properly as we move forward into next year's budget. And normally we meet with principals and department heads to discuss new initiatives and programs. Due to the operational uncertainty of last year and this year, it was really difficult to plan for new initiatives and programs. So we're just kind of trying to return to normal is the goal of the FY23 budget. So areas of focus in personnel, new Center Elementary is our big area of focus. Who will be staying at their present elementary school and who will be supporting the new Center Elementary School. Another challenge is collective bargaining. We have no collective bargaining agreements in effect currently, so we'd had to use, again, some modeling and projections to try to figure out what our budget should be for next year in a lot of our salary areas. Also, again, assuring accurate accounting of our COVID-related leave of absences and one-year replacements and hires, making sure if folks are gone and coming back, we put them back in the mix. If they're a one-year hire, that they're not counted in next year's budget. We also want to make sure we're funding student services adequately to recover from COVID-related progress reduction. When students aren't in school, we realize that there'll be a reduction in the yearly progress, and we want to make sure that we have resources available to get students back to where they need to be at grade level as far as academic progress. Operational, again, the new Center Elementary School, we had to estimate effects of the new Center Elementary School opening on transportation, utilities, supplies, insurance, and maintenance. That was a big undertaking. We wanted to make sure we were covered in those areas. Focus on technology is always network and device security. Technology is such an important part of learning in today's classrooms. We want to make sure everything's working at all times, so we have monitoring systems that let us know when things aren't working before class starts, so we can get into those classrooms and make sure the internet's up and running prior to students and staff arriving. We also want to focus on device maintenance and replacement. The tech department has a robust replacement plan, so we're turning over devices at end of life and making sure that we have devices in students' hands that work at all times. And we're also assessing the one-to-one program that was implemented this year at the high school to see if that has a place at some of our other schools as well. The Ryan and the Wynn would be the next obvious choices to see if we want to roll out a one-to-one at different grade levels. Also, printing solutions, we're always looking at ways that we can use less paper and improve the our global footprint in using less paper and improving our paper use. As far as building improvements, we're always looking at upkeep improvement of our older buildings. The North Street and the Trahan are scheduled to go away next year for us. So the older buildings now that we're focusing on are doing in Heathbrook. Want to make sure we have those folks up and running as best we can. Building security is another key focus for us. We've now got vestibules installed at all schools except the Dewing, with a plan to address that this summer. And building systems, overall HVAC improvements are planned and being investigated, I should say, with the help of some consultants at all schools to see where we can make improvements to our HVAC and air quality in our classrooms. So COVID impact, I apologize to the committee too. This, I noticed just today that I had not updated this slide in your package with data through last month. So this slide that's on the screen here, I updated today with spending through our COVID grants through the end of February. You see that the student services expenses continued at about the same rate that we had been spending through January. Cleaning supplies and PPE also is continuing at about the same rate. Custodial overtime has continued at about the same rate as well. Nurse overtime has slowed down a bit. HVAC slowed down, didn't change since January. Instructional supplies, no change since January. Instructional technology, we made no purchases there, and we had a small student transportation expense that we incurred during January. And I'll get you this slide updated tomorrow. Apologize for missing that in the package last week. So overall, the budget request that we're making is now a 2.12 increase. You'll notice this is lower than the February proposed request, which was 2.34% increase that was requested. What had changed was the town received our Shawshene Tech FY23 assessment. We had a placeholder in place with the town at, I believe it was around 6%, which is pretty significant increase that we had projected. It came in slightly higher than that from the folks at Shawshene Tech, which amounted to about $123,000 higher than we anticipated. Worked with the town manager, and we did have a way to get close to that number from the school department's perspective through some recent resignations and retirements and the cost of replacing those positions. We're able to come up with about $65,000, and the shift of one nurse, FTE, to our Sr3 grant, which was officially approved. We had it in the works, but it was officially approved recently. So we felt comfortable that we would be able to fund one of our nurse positions with that grant money for next year. So the total reduction that we were planning to make came to $115,327, with the remaining balance to come from the town budget to get to our approximately $123 that we needed to cover the new Shawshene Tech expense. So if we include our fixed costs and debt, it's a 1.49 increase that we're requesting across the that we'll be requesting at the May town meeting. Our debt is the debt on our school buildings. This school, we're still paying the debt on, as well as the new school that's coming online next year. We started paying the debt on those bonds back 2 years ago, and it's a naturally decreasing debt, so that's going to lower each year as we move forward. So we can't take too much credit for those reductions, but we do see an overall reduction in our requests. So salary represents 70% of our school budget, and this slide sort of breaks down the head count and where that funding lies by group. Obviously, most of our salaries are in our teacher line item, 68% of the 70%, which is good. It's where we should be spending our money. Teachers are the folks that deliver the actual product that we produce. So that's where we want to be focusing our budget money. In the operating budget, a little more spread out, not focused in any one area. Tuition, transportation, and special ed services are kind of the key focus areas in the operating budget, but it represents 28% of our overall budget. And just 2% of our budget on capital outlay. These are some priority projects that we will try to get completed over the next year, if we can. Upgrading the high school security cameras, wind roof coating. We've done a roof coating project at the Ryan School and the Heathbrook School that have proven successful and been much less expensive than a complete roof replacement. So we're going to look at maybe a partial phased-in approach at the Wynn. Also, we've just got a report that our high school roof is in need of repairs. We haven't developed an approach here yet, but we want to address that before, when roofs go bad, it's not good for our building, so we want to make sure we address that before any damage occurs inside the building. Clear touch boards for the balance of the classrooms in the district. Clear touch boards are the approach that our instructional leaders want to take as far as technology goes for the classroom. So we want to provide clear touch boards for each teacher and make sure that all teachers are teaching in the same manner and have the same resources to do that. And our intrusion alarm at the Ryan School was in need of replacement as well. These are some potential capital projects that we have on tap for the other schools. HVAC improvements, we're investigating through the use of our SR3 funding at all schools. You'll see that showing up at each school as we go down this list. These are completed capital projects that we've had for the past 4 years, quite an extensive list. We've had great support from the town, Finance Committee, selectmen, as far as funding some of these projects through town warrant articles, some of them funded through our budget, some of them funded through our capital outlay budget itself. Some larger projects to call to your attention, the Heathbrook School, we were able to replace windows in 20 classrooms. The windows there were plexiglass that was about 25 years old and had faded to sort of an opaque color, could not be seen through, sort of shook and rattled every time the wind blew, so not energy efficient at all. So those were replaced with operable windows with screens, be able to provide light, fresh air, and a much better environment for the kids at those schools, at that school, sorry. In the Ryan School, I mentioned the roof coating project that's been so far successful. We also manage 56 separate funds and grants and revolving that are grants and revolving accounts in the business office. Each of these funds has a specific purpose and must be used appropriately. When we collect high school parking fees, it goes into a fund that has to be spent on expenses related to high school parking. We're not allowed to use high school parking fees to buy textbooks or buy, uniforms for the basketball team. They has to be spent on parking type expenses. Same with grants. All those grants that we get have a specific purpose and must be spent according to the application that we put in with the Department of Ed. This is the grant funding available in FY22. We don't yet know what our grant funding will be in FY23, but typically what we receive in 22, in the current year, is a pretty good indication of what we'll get in the upcoming year. We do have ESSER 1, 2, and 3 grants that are COVID specific. We haven't touched the ESSER 3 monies as of yet. They do have an extended time frame for us to spend that. ESSER 3 is, we're allowed to spend that money until September of 2024. So we do have a little bit of time to spend that $2.7 million that the town received in ESSER 3 funding. The other entitlement grants for special education, reading, English language learners, things like that, generally are one-year grants with a one-year carryover. So you can generally spend them in a two-year period. So this is what our whole budget will look like at town meeting in May currently. With our fixed costs kind of expanded here, our health insurance has been relatively flat since the town's implemented the new some new programs for our employees. You notice our building insurance is going to see quite an increase. That's due to the new school coming online midway through next year, as well as the vacancy of the North Street and the Trahan buildings. Our insurance folks have informed us that insuring a vacant building costs more than insuring an occupied building, because I guess more accidents happen in vacant buildings. So the next steps will continue discussions with building principals, department heads, elected officials, town officials. Anything that changes or needs adjusting as we approach town meeting, we'll take action to hopefully address. Things do happen as we move forward, such as the Shawshene Tech example that we had happen last week. So that should, in fact, could result in some movement among line items between salaries and operating, or if our health insurance numbers should increase or any other area. But we feel we should be able to operate effectively within the total $70 million budget figure that the town manager has recommended. We do have line item detailed account level budget that's posted on our website. And it will be updated with the most recent numbers by mid-morning tomorrow. And that concludes my presentation. Are there any questions?
Before I open it up for questions, just one real-time update. We were, and I'll have a report in the matters of interest. I did note that you said we hadn't reached agreement. Very happy to report that the nurses in the Tewksbury Public Schools ratified their contract, and we just did that as well as the school committee in executive session. As I said, I'll have an update, but I just want those people, if they're at home watching, nurses, not to be confused that we absolutely have an agreement with the nurses, so
I stand corrected.
that's okay. It was about 20 minutes ago, so. Thank you, Mr. Libby. I'll start to my right. Mr. Parsons, any questions, comments?
I have none at this time.
Mrs. Garabedian?
No, I have one question, actually. In our grant funding, 309-530, it's, there's money that's allotted for the summer, after school, out of school time, academic support, recovery after school. That grant funding, is that similar to what we had last summer available?
Which, 30,
It's on your grant funding page towards the bottom.
so that summer, it's a little confusing. That
know.
summer already happened.
Right.
So we expect we'll receive that next summer.
Okay.
So the summer that's starting in a few months,
Yeah.
we're hoping that we'll receive that same type of funding for going forward.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Great. That was my, because we've been listening to this, so I've,
We just don't know that yet.
asking as I go along. Thank you so much.
Mrs. Demos?
Thank you, Mr. Libby. I've appreciated all the updates over the last few committee meetings and all the time put into this. The one question that I came to just needing some more clarification is in regards to the transportation increases, right? We all know what we're going through with gas right now and things. Does our agreement with the transportation company have any impact? Will it be impacted at all by the increases in fuel prices and things? Or what are we looking in now we're pretty locked into for going ahead?
We're locked into, our contract is in the third year.
Okay.
A 3-year deal, and we don't have a fuel escalation clause
Good.
in our contract.
Okay.
Some contracts, it's very common for districts to have that. And if the price goes up, they need to find the funding.
Yep.
Our contract, we didn't,
But we do not.
nope.
And then when we're looking at the new Center Elementary, are we expecting that maybe there'll be any sort of a cost savings with the transportation with such a centrally located school 2 to 4? Or because we have siblings that are still placed at the other 2 buildings, we might have to just be doubling some of those routes? I was trying to logistically think, are we really going to have a cost savings here in transportation with this new hub of a building, or?
No, with the schools running basically at the same time as the K-1 school, the new school will be
Right, so
running.
we can't split the routes, right, because of start times?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. That was the only thing, I just kept going back to the transportation costs and the increase we saw. But thank you very much, that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you, Mrs. Demos. Mr. Stadman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, the only question I had, obviously I've missed prior meetings. This is my first budgetary meeting, so thank you for having me. If it hasn't been already answered, just the quick question, obviously glaring question as far as the insurance with having an empty school building,
Yeah.
65% increase. Is there any pressure to get that off of our books? Understanding that we have a reuse committee, would there be an absorption from the town to get it off of our books onto their books as a liability?
That's what I assume will happen after FY23.
Awesome, thank you.
Mr. Libby, the only question I had was regarding the nurse, shifting that nurse to the Sr3 Grant. Do you know how long we're going to be able to do that, or? Is that a one time this year, and then she's going to come back, obviously, looking at the numbers and the overtime, and I wholeheartedly understand why that number is inflated with all that went on in contact tracing and all that, but I think I'd like to be reassured that, we had 10 nurses coming into this, and we'd like to make sure, going out of the pandemic, and if they are on the ESSER grant, that when that ESSER grant goes away, that we retain that person.
We should be able to, by FY, that would be FY '24. We did have 2 years' worth of nurse funding in the ESSER 3 grant, so we should be able to fund it for 2 years. And at that time, we would be down a building, so I think we'd want to assess at that time.
Okay.
Our nurse needs.
Okay.
I think.
Great. Thank you very much. Seeing no further questions, I'd move to make a motion to close our third public hearing at 6:34 PM. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close tonight's public hearing. All those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye as well. That's a unanimous vote. Thank you, Mr. Libby, for your update. And at this time, I would like to reconvene our March 9th, 2022 regular school committee meeting at 6:34 PM. And I'd like to ask our student representative, Mr. Jack Stadman, to lead us on the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Oh, a flag here? Huh?
This is very unusual.
Okay, why don't we do this? I would ask everyone to please be seated, and as I make my announcement, Mrs. Gail Johnson, could we maybe grab a custodian and put the flag in here, and I can get through the announcement while we wait to do our pledge, please. All right, the March 9th, 2022 regular school committee meeting will be televised and recorded and may be viewed live on Comcast Channel 22 and Verizon Channel 34 or at youtube.com/Tewksbury-TV. Under the open meeting law, the public is permitted to make an audio or video recording of an open session at a public meeting. At this time, I would ask if anyone is recording tonight's meeting to please identify himself or herself. Great. Seeing none, we will hold until we get our flag in here. Thank you. And thank you for your patience. Isn't there one in the other one?
We're going to the bathroom.
We're going to start without this, just so you know.
Someone took it. Someone must have used it.
Shouldn't have projected one on the screen.
Second to last.
College decisions?
Narrowed it down to 9 so far.
I hear it.
I got deferred to April 1st. That's the last one. 5 to 18 so far. So April 1st.
So here it comes.
Still your number one?
Yes. Yeah. Holding strong.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you, sir.
Let's try this again. I would ask everyone to please rise as Mr. Stadman leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Stadman, and thank you, Patrick, our wonderful custodian, for bailing us out there. With that, I already did the announcement. I'd like to turn it over to our Superintendent, Mrs. Regan, for our recognition this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome guests. Tonight, we are recognizing and honoring Mr. George Paul. If I could have Dr. Basteri and Mr. Paul go over to the podium for a moment. Most of you know Mr. Paul as a beloved principal of the Trahan School. What you probably don't know is that Mr. Paul started his educational career here in Tewksbury in 1966. He retired in 2008. Now that sounds silly, right? Because he's clearly failed retirement. He continues to serve the students and educators of Tewksbury since 2008 for a total of 56 years. He serves in the capacity of chairing and managing our Title I grant, or our entitlement grants. He's served as a mentor, colleague, and critical friend to so many educators throughout this district, including yours truly. I've invited one of his longest-serving colleagues, who clearly, Ms. Dr. Cindy Basteri, has also failed retirement, but to come and just give us a few words about Mr. Paul.
It really is my pleasure to be here to recognize the wonderful, illustrious career of Mr. Paul. It's hard to express all the positive ways he has impacted our school department, but this proclamation that he's about to receive is so very well deserved. So without further ado, I'll turn the mic over to, I believe, Mrs. Demos.
That's me.
How are you? All good. Good to see you.
So those of you that don't know, 25 years ago, George here hired me for my first job in a public school teaching. He took me under his wing right away, and I am a better person, educator, and instructional leader today because of him. George will always have a special place in my heart. Our love for Disney, teaching, and family always brought us together. Words cannot express my appreciation for his guidance and support throughout all these years. To this day, when I make a big decision, I hear him in my head saying, "Now, Shannon, think about this. In 10 years, will it still be as important to you today as it will be in 10 years? And I still think about that every day. George has had a great impact on both students and staff over his tenure here in Tewksbury. He has the biggest heart of anyone I know, and he will help you in any way that he can. His institutional knowledge, love of the students, and art of teaching will be greatly missed. I wish you all the best for a happy and healthy retirement." No, good. With that being said, I have the pleasure of reading the following proclamation on behalf of the Tewksbury Public School Committee. Sorry. Whereas George Paul, caring, selfless, sincere, dedicated educator and advocate for children, began his career in education at the Center School in 1966, and 56 years later, he continues his Tewksbury legacy. And whereas George has worn many hats in the Tewksbury Public Schools, grade 6 teacher at the Center School, promoted to vice principal of the Dewing School in 1970, Trahan School principal in 1996, and finally in 2008, George retired from Tewksbury Public Schools. Mr. Paul's commitment to the Tewksbury Public Schools did not end with retirement. In 2008, he was appointed to the position of district-wide Title I coordinator. He also shared the duties of principal of the Dewing School for the 2010-2011 school year. And to this day, George continues his work as the district-wide Title I coordinator. And whereas George is a great man whose presence in Tewksbury is unforgettable, during his tenure, he mentored and influenced many new principals and district administrators. Today, we offer our gratitude and appreciation for his timeless commitment, his patience, smiles, laughter, and knowledge he shared with generations. And whereas Mr. Paul has brought great pride, recognition, and honor to the Tewksbury Public Schools, to his wife and his family, and to the town of Tewksbury. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Tewksbury School Committee applauds, honors, and recognizes the many contributions and accomplishments of Mr. George Paul. On behalf of the Tewksbury School Committee, we will miss you greatly.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your service.
All too kind.
Please say some words if you'd like to. Don't feel you have to, though, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And you don't have a dancing pig somewhere behind
No, I know.
trivia contest.
I do thank you. I do thank you very much. This
Is that one
working?
on, Jason? Okay, thank you.
You can hear me anyway.
Yep.
I've made a few mistakes over my career, but one was hiring Shannon, that's for sure. I have been here. I always classify myself and a few other retirees as crabgrass. You just can't get rid of us. But I have enjoyed every minute of my time in Tewksbury. As you can see, even after I retired, Dr. McGrath asked me to take over Title I for 1 year. And 13 years later, I'm still here, so I figured it's definitely time to go out to greener pastures. But I will say one thing. I wouldn't have been here this long if I didn't enjoy the town. Arguably, the best kids, best staff, and best parents you could find anywhere. And that's really all you need to have a great school department. I've gone through ups and downs with teachers, administrators, school committees, but it's always been the best for the kids. And I appreciated every minute of it. And I truly, truly appreciate the recognition. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Paul. Congratulations, and good luck in your future endeavors. With that, big shoes to fill here, Mr. Jack Stadman, and a student representative report.
Definitely a tough speech to follow up, but I'll
Yep.
sure will try. As always, thank you for having me back. The Team HS Drama Club is still working hard on their most recent production of Mamma Mia. They'll be bringing this to the stage on April 28th, 29th, and 30th. The student councils holding their weekly meetings on Thursday mornings. The student council is now running a matchmaker extraordinaire. If you're interested in finding a match for prom, fill out the form in your email and pay the membership fee to your student council representatives. Elections will be held within the coming month to replace or re-elect all the representatives in the current positions, which includes my spot, unfortunately. If you are interested, please see Ms. Glass for more details. As for my replacement, the votes will be cast tomorrow morning, which unfortunately means next meeting is my last meeting. Friday, the Tewksbury High School hockey team faces off once again for a chance to play at the TD Garden and take home the title. I wish them the best of luck on the ice. The morning update is still broadcasting live every morning. You can tune in on YouTube to catch the latest in-school updates. Our Tewksbury High School DECA team has their state competitions later this week. The team, along with myself, have been studying hard over the past coming months in the hopes to make it to nationals. I wish them all the best of luck. And as always, I'd like to take a moment to thank Mr. Stedman and Ms. Demos for their time here on the council. I know you've sacrificed so much time over these 3 years, and it's been a great experience, not only being a part of this board, but with all of you, and it will certainly not be the same without the two of you. And that is all I have for today, so thank you again.
Great, thank you, Mr. Stadman, and I'd like to reiterate the same to you as well. You've been a pleasure to have in here meeting after meeting. You always come in, you're thoughtful, you're concise, you give wonderful updates, and I hear you're a very well-liked student as well, so I can assure you we're going to miss you probably more than you're going to miss us, and maybe coming here, and I wish you the best of luck in your graduation this year and moving on to college. So
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
thank you very much. All right, we have a couple nice presentations this evening. I think we have an Officer Eric Hanley with us from the Tewksbury Police Department.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Ms. Demos. Thank you for requesting that not only Officer Hanley, he gets very little attention these days, but that Officer Hanley, our school resource officer, come to the school committee with our most new resource officer, Officer Waffles. Officer Waffles has been with the district a few months now and is offering much therapy and comfort to not only our students, but let me tell you, to our teachers and our administrators. Officer Hanley is going to tell you a little bit about his experiences so far.
Thank you, Mrs. Regan.
Trying to get him so you guys can see him. I can still be on the mic. So Waffles, I got him when he was 8 weeks old. He's going to be 6 months old on Sunday. He's with me at the Win. I'm at the Win most of the time. I try to make my rounds at the elementary schools so all the kids can see them. Whenever I get a request, via email or phone call, I try to be available so all the kids can see them. I've been to every school so far. Been to the high school quite a bit, covering for my partner, Officer Reiser, when he's out in trainings and whatnot. If you guys want to follow Waffles, he's on all the social media outlets under Officer Waffles, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Waffles is continuing his training at Auntie Dogs, which is right on 38 in Tewksbury. Liz Cleaves is the owner. She's been doing great with him. He trains with her on Tuesdays all day while I'm at work, and then I train with him at night at the studio. He just completed his first 6-week program. It's the AKC Star Puppy program. I don't know if you guys saw on social media. He got valedictorian because he was number 1.
Valedictorian.
Gets nervous every once in a while with the adults. He loves the kids. He likes little kids. But sometimes when the adults come around, he gets a little nervous. But he's only 6 months old, so he's going to do really good in the schools. Kids love him. When we were doing mass breaks, a lot of the girls at the Win wanted to get out of their mass breaks after lunch, so they'd come to my office to pet Waffles for the 5 minutes instead of walking around the Rotary. So I had the same frequent flyers in my office, every day wanting to pet Waffles instead of going on their Rotary walks. But tomorrow he starts another 6-week program, regular dog obedience program at Auntie's. That's going to run for the next month and a half. And just scheduled him at some point. He's got to go away for a month. I don't know. My wife and kids are not happy about that. I think they want to go with him, but he's going to go for a whole month of training with various trainers at Auntie Dog 24/7. They're going to take care of him, and that's towards the end of June. And then, so what people don't realize is that he's supposed to be a comfort dog, but when I was going through the process to see who the handler was, I said my goal was to have him be a therapy dog, a certified therapy dog through Therapy Dog International. That was my goal I wanted for the dog. I didn't want to stop at comfort. So he can't, no dog can technically be a therapy dog until they're a year old. So he's still got quite a bit of time left before he reaches his goal of therapy dog. But for now, he's the comfort dog, and he's doing great at training. He likes to show off at training. He does all the right stuff, to the point where I don't really have to give him treats anymore for him to do all those commands. He kind of does them just to show off, show up the other dogs. So, yeah, he's great. He lives with me, comes home with me every day. Sometimes when I have to go to trainings, I'll bring him to the station, and a couple of my counterparts will watch him every once in a while at the station. But other than that, after, I'll do the rounds so you guys can check them out and everything like that. But you guys have any questions, or?
Yes, we'll start with our Vice Chairman, Mrs. Demos.
Yes, thank you. I have to say that I may be a tad obsessed with stalking him on every social media there is. If that is such a thing. He's absolutely adorable, and I'm so happy that we went through with this. I was concerned at the beginning that there would be students that were anxious around the dogs, and I was just curious to see, I know you're only going in and out now, pretty quickly, but have you found any reservations as far as the students are concerned, or are they welcoming?
Yeah, not with students, not with anyone really. I mean, like I said, they come down to my office. I went to one of the schools, one of the elementary schools, and one kid was deathly afraid of dogs, so he kind of sat at his desk a little bit, and you're taught, keep your distance, and if they want to come to the dog, they'll come to the dog, and at some point, slowly got closer and closer, and right before I left, he was like, wow, these dogs are the greatest. He's like, I want a dog now. So he went from being petrified of dogs. Within 5 minutes, he's going to tell his parents he wants to go buy a dog when he gets home, so that was pretty cool. Now, the kids love him. There was a tragedy with a parent passed away, and one of the kids went to one of the private daycares in town, and they asked me to They reached out to me and asked me if I could go make the trip to the daycare in Tewksbury. I went there and took pictures with the kid, and they loved it. I mean, just to see, the reaction when the dog comes in the room.
Yep.
Every kid, like, they want to run to the dog, but all the teachers like, no, sit in your seat, sit at your desk, they'll come when you're ready. But I mean, and I'm surprised, because I thought students at the high school would be like, 14 through 18-year-olds, it's a dog. I mean, I think they love waffles.
I see just as many pictures of them with waffles on Instagram.
The first couple days, Officer Reiser was in training, so the first couple days I had a cover at the high school. And, I didn't know, like, should I, bring him around to everyone right here? And, but he was really young, but I brought him around a little bit to the lunchrooms, and I got a little bit in trouble with the trainer. She was like, you can't go too quick because they'll regress, but I still brought him anyways. But they did a Waffles fan page on Instagram that day. So I came in the next day covering for Officer Reiser, and a bunch of kids came into my office at the high school, and they showed me the fan page, Waffles fan page. So like all the students at this high school run a fan page for Waffles, and every time they snap a picture. So I was going to be on my A game, because I don't know when pictures of me's getting taken. So I'll look on it and I'll see pictures. I'm like, oh, I didn't know they were taking pictures of me right there and then. So I'm like, oh, got to behave. I don't know when these pictures are getting taken.
So you said he's going to sort of graduate from that comfort level dog and become a therapeutic. How do you envision that rolling out into the school system, right? Will that be something that's on a need basis, or will you still do regular visits throughout the schools?
Yeah, no, nothing's going to change. When I presented to the school committee, the thing was they were going to stop at comfort, and you just have a comfort dog, because there's a lot of different, schooling and voluntary work. You have to go to hospitals, old age homes, and stuff like that. And where he's with a police officer full time, technically it wouldn't be considered voluntary work, because the police are supposed to pay me when I go out on my own. But I told them that I do that voluntarily, because it's something I want. I want the dog to have that certificate. So I told them, all the hospital visits after the fact would all be voluntarily, and so because you can't pay someone as they're going up to get their therapy dog certificate. They have to do it
I see.
voluntarily, so I said, that's not really an issue.
Okay,
I'll do it all voluntarily because I want that for the dog.
that's awesome. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Mr. Stabenow?
I have no questions. I want to thank you for your time and your volunteer work. I
Thank you.
truly appreciate that, so
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Mrs. Garabedian?
No, just thank you and your family to the commitment to waffles. It's big.
Yeah, he gets treated better than I do, so it's not just at the schools where people don't know me anymore. It's at my house, too.
And Mr. Parsons?
Yeah, I have no questions. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you. As you can see, he's got a great demeanor. He did get excited when you guys had the standing ovation. He wasn't barking, he was cheering for you. For your years of service to the town, so he got excited for you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Hanley. I can assure you at his one-year anniversary, if he has that certification, we certainly would welcome having you back here.
Absolutely.
It's a wonderful next step, not only for our school, but for our community, and
Yeah.
on behalf of a grateful school committee and community, we really appreciate and applaud you going above and beyond and getting that
Yeah, like I said, when I...
certification, volunteering on your own, so thank you.
Like when I said when I put in for this, they interviewed, I said the sky's the limit, and I really believe that. I mean, he's only been around here for, 4 months, and look at the difference he's made. So just, he's not even a year old yet, so I could see years from now, the impact he'll leave on the students and the staff. I mean, staff love him. They already got treats for him. They'll come in the office at the Wynn with treats. He'll go running out of my office, and I'll look for him. He'll be sitting down. They'll be feeding him treats. So,
Officer
made an
Hanley,
impact, and it's nice to see.
If I can, maybe you could do your exit behind the school committee here, so everyone will have a chance to pat and meet Officer Waffles while Mr. Stamp sets up for
Yep.
the next
Absolutely.
presentation. And if it's okay with you,
Yeah.
maybe perhaps too, anybody that wants to go out into the lobby there to meet Waffles after you leave the room, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Robin.
And Mr. Stamp, if you would like to set up your presentation right now, that would be fine.
Yeah, I know. It's been a long time. I'm good. I met him.
Hey, kids.
Yeah, he's super cute. Bye, bud.
You know his son. You see him every day. Who's your fan favorite right there?
He's a pretty coat.
Okay, go ahead, go say hi. Take him home. Same. We have to get Mr. Stadman up off the floor to join the meeting. He's so cute. Hi, buddy. Bye. I know.
You like because
I
you play
know.
ball. You play ball with him.
Mr. Stamp, whenever you're ready.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the school committee, Superintendent Regan. Thank you for having me here tonight. My purpose here tonight is to speak to you about the state of technology in the district. I thought that phrase was funny because it seems like a State of the Union type statement. Specifically, technology integration and also the status of our K-4 math curriculum plan that was developed back in February of 2021. I'd like to first begin by providing you with a brief overview of the current state of technology with regard to hardware and software. As you are aware, in the wake of COVID, the need for increased digital resources rose greatly. We currently have approximately 4,000 Chromebooks, 1,500 iPads, and 350 teacher laptops across the district. We have moved to a one-to-one model at the high school to provide equity to all students so that they can access the curriculum from home as well as in school. I'm currently working with our building principals to move in that direction in our 5-8 schools in the upcoming year. More on that to come. As you know, every classroom in the district has an interactive whiteboard. Most are smart boards and have been in classrooms for well over 10 years, some close to 20 years. These boards are essential to classroom instruction. I almost never see them not in use during class time. 3 years ago, we started researching newer technology to use to replace older, failing smart boards. And actually, the boards that we currently have, they don't make anymore. You can't even buy them. You'd have to buy them secondhand. We piloted a few different types and decided that the best fit was ClearTouch interactive panels. These are all-in-one units. They look like TVs, but they have touch screens, and they run a full Windows operating system. We have, I think, currently about 50 to 60 in the district. The feedback we've received from teachers has been overwhelmingly positive. The new elementary school will have a ClearTouch board in every classroom, and we have been slowly replacing all of our current boards with ClearTouches as the need arises. Another impact of COVID was the influx of digital resources that teachers used with their students and also tools that were necessary for basic communications. As you can see on the screen, the district is using well over 1,000 paid and free digital resources with students to support the curriculum. A few examples include Google Enterprise, which we use for email, document creation, storage, web meetings, calendar appointments, many other productivity applications. We have Generation Genius, which is an online resource that supports our math and our science curriculum. We have tons of free resources, including Code Avengers, Vernier, and the list just goes on and on and on. As you can imagine, supporting all this new hardware and software requires a team of skilled individuals. We're lucky to have a very strong team that we've built over the last 6 years that is able to support teachers to not only use technology with their students, but also to elevate their lessons using technology. We have staff that address issues and fix problems, and staff that work with teachers on how to best leverage technology to increase student engagement and achievement. Unfortunately, this year, the latter has been lacking due to the fact that both of our technology integration coaches left the district in the fall to pursue other career opportunities. Last year, with the help of the technology integration coaches, we began to inventory all of the digital resources, that big list of 1,000 or so, that the district is using, and verify with fidelity that we have signed data privacy agreements, DPAs, for all that collect student data. We have joined the Student Data Privacy Consortium, SDPC, which allows us to use DPAs already created by other school districts with companies. And it saves us a lot of money because the amount of legal fees associated with creating these DPAs would be sort of through the roof. This led us to revamp our software request process. The new process is completely digital, which allows us to distribute the work of vetting all of our resources as well as evaluate the effectiveness and need in the district. Certainly with the increase in utilization of technology over the past few years, so have the requests for support from tech coaches. In the 3 years prior to this year, we had on average over 300 requests for tech coaches. These requests typically result in many meetings with teachers to brainstorm and to plan, and in most cases, the coaches would also support the teacher as they incorporate whatever new tech tool they are trying. One of my goals this year was to work to work with the digital literacy and computer science curriculum, and to start to align it more vertically so that we have a well-thought-out program district-wide. It has been difficult without the help of the tech coaches to accomplish this task. As you will see later in the presentation, the amount of work it takes to achieve great results cannot be accomplished without an exceptional team. I'm very happy to say that we have just posted for these positions, so we'll have that support back in the fall. We have, I think, about 4 applicants at this point, which is promising. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the efforts of the school committee and to thank you for your support related to technology acquisition and implementation in the past few years. Our students and our staff continue to benefit tremendously from the updated resources and staff support. So on behalf of the district, thank you so much, so much. So now at this time, I'd like to introduce three very important people who will update you on the K-4 math curriculum implementation plan. These are our three district math coaches, Erin Swanson, Laura Zum, and Sarah Yor.
So as Jason just said, I'm Sarah Yor, and as Jason just said, we're here tonight just to give an update on the TPS K-4 curriculum that's changed. There have been a lot of changes in the last few years, so we're here for that.
Hi, I'm Erin Swanson. So Tewksbury purchased the Go Math program in 2010, and then in 2017, Massachusetts published a revised version of the math curriculum framework. The math team noticed that Go Math didn't align with the updated standards and began to look at ways to supplement Go Math.
I am Laura Zum, and it was then decided that the TPS math curriculum needed to be rewritten to align with the 2017 framework. Over the past 5 years, Tewksbury has been working on rewriting the math curriculum for grades K to 5. In early 2021, we decided to create a plan to implement the new units of study that were created based on the standards and best practices found in the most current research and courses we have taken. In addition to addressing the standards, another goal we had with the TPS math curriculum was to allow teachers to have the autonomy in how they teach their students.
And so, as you can see on the slide, there were two phases to the implementation. The first phase, which started this year, the 21-22 year, allowed the grades 2 through 4 to continue to use Go Math as their primary resource, although they're still following along with the overview that the TPS curriculum that we have developed, but they can still use Go Math. K and 1 are using, with fidelity, they're following the UBD units that we've developed and following what Laura just said, they've been developed with the latest research and pedagogy content into align with the 2017 frameworks. And we've been working tirelessly with the K and 1 teams to help them, because they no longer have Go Math, to help them implement them.
So this year, like Sarah was just saying, we've really enjoyed working closely with the kindergarten and first grade teachers. We've attended their PLCs and most recently had a very successful data meeting with each grade level at the Heathbrook School during their common planning time. The following slideshow shows data that we share with these teachers that was collected on Otis.
Can I jump in and tell you one thing I did forget?
Yes.
I said that K 2 to 4 is still using Go Math, but that's this year. Next year, we're going to make the shift so that K and 1 will be on their own. We'll certainly support them, but they'll be on their own because they've had a year of support from us. And then next year, we'll focus with 2, 3, and 4 to start implementing the UBD units that we've developed. Same thing that we'll do for them next year that we did this year for K and 1. Sorry.
No, it's fine. Some of the work we have done this year during the PLCs includes planning for upcoming lessons and units, getting feedback from teachers about any revisions they would like to see of the TPS math curriculum, and supporting them on using Otis to collect standards data.
So also, what we've been doing, I said we've been working with K and 1 almost exclusively this year. We've done what they want us to do. We've gone in and planned with them. We go over data with them, data analysis. We've co-taught lessons. We've modeled lessons. We've brought in resources. We've done what they've wanted. However we can support them to implement it, because it's been a huge change for them.
And this slide just again shows the data that we analyzed with the first grade team last week. And this shows how they've done on standards that they've addressed so far this year.
And two, as you're talking about that, we've also, for the benchmark, any of the teachers that chose to do the benchmark to administer that, we went in and helped many teachers administer that if they chose to do so.
And then if you look up to the smart board or projector, that these are some of the quotes that have been collected during the meetings that we've had from teachers. So we've had a lot of really great positive feedback from teachers.
And then the following couple slides are just some pictures of things that we have done with the students. In the first picture, we're in a first grade classroom where students are playing a game to practice their fluency. The second picture was an activity we created for to celebrate the 100th day of school, and we cut up a hundreds chart so that students could use their knowledge of the hundreds chart to put it back together. And it was really interesting to see what parts of that were tricky. And in the third picture, we are modeling how to use Braining Camp, which is one of our newer resources that we've acquired over the last year. And we're showing here how it can be used in a second grade classroom using place value discs to practice 3-digit place value.
And in addition to working with the teachers, the grade level teams within the individual schools and the individual teachers, we'll also continue to work with the steering committee to review the data, do some data analysis from Otis and wherever else they have data. And also, excuse me, with that, I mean, the data analysis through Otis allows the individual teachers and the teams of teachers to find the strengths and the areas of challenge for the kiddos, so then they can plan their go from there. Also, we're the steering committee. We will continue to work with, as soon as we can get going with it again. We'll have folks there help us review and revise the units. We'll get feedback from teachers. K and 1 have already used the units this year, and so they'll be able to provide feedback. We can revise them, and then steering committee 2, as we're starting implementation next year with 2 through 4, steering committee members will help us continue to develop that as well for the upcoming year. And thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And we appreciate your support.
Great.
Anybody have questions?
Sure, thank you.
Hopefully the answer is no, but no, sure.
We'll start with our Vice Chair, Mrs. Demos.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for coming in and taking the time to share all this exciting information with us. Could you just please clarify for me who the steering committee consists of when you're referring to the steering committee?
The steering, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The steering committee consists of a group of teachers, whether that's us as coaches, classroom teachers, and we have also had special educators on the team over the past at least 3 years that I've been here.
And is it one collective steering committee that speaks to the K and the 1, or is it one steering committee per grade level?
We like to have at least a couple different people per grade level.
Okay.
And so we have met in the past, we have met collectively at like all grade levels. But then we also try to break up into grade level, meet separately with grade level teachers.
Excellent. And when you say that you're analyzing the data, I heard you mention that if they decide to implement the benchmark, is there a consistent grade level benchmark math assessment that we're asking all students to complete so that we can have accurate data and how to move the students forward in their mathematical skills?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
There is a benchmark at each level. As we're rolling out this new way of addressing math, we are giving teachers the option to whether they administer that one benchmark assessment, or are they collecting standards data all year and using that more to inform their teaching rather than just one assessment. So this year, K and 1 teachers had the choice of whether they administered that specific benchmark, or did they feel like they had enough standards data to be able to inform their teaching. Grades 2 to 4 had to administer the benchmark this year. Next year, they will be given that same option.
And then moving forward that next year, once you've had a pilot year with grade 2 to 4, it'll be the same for K to 4 all the way across as far as those expectations.
Correct.
I'm just thinking of those, small targeted groups that we need to be looking at now more than ever, and I need to better understand where you're getting those data points from so that it's consistent school to school across the grade levels.
Right.
So I appreciate that.
Yes. Yep.
So we have for each of the units, there are several formative assessments, and then there are summative assessments. And the formatives can be done, they can be done within Otis, they can be done paper and pencil. For the younger kiddos, of course, so
Right.
much more of it is observational and not paper to pencil. And the teachers can record the data from that and then enter it into Otis, which is, we think, a great tool for compiling the data and does a lot of the analytics for us. And we just, as Laura had showed that slide before, there are lots of graphs you can dig down into certain populations of kids, different groups. You can group it. It does a lot of work for us,
right,
as far as analyzing the data.
And you'll be in place to train any of those new teachers that come on board where we don't necessarily have a math program where you can't say, okay, here's your Go Math curriculum and your guide. You'll be there to guide the new teachers with this new program, K to 1, even though you won't be there to support, correct?
Well, we did K-1, if I understand you
If
correctly.
we have a new teacher in K-1 next year?
Oh, yes,
Who's
yes.
going, is there like a mentor teacher on a K-1 level, or will that be you that comes in and trains that
Well, there's
person?
both, but the units are also everybody has access to the units.
Okay.
And so there are lessons within them, the standards are there, the activities are there, the lessons are there. So they do have that as a resource.
Okay.
Plus, they would have us as well. Like this year, we've also had, I think I said we worked almost exclusively with K and 1, but we've had requests from a handful of folks, second grade at the Heathbrook School, and so we've gone in and worked. Today, we went in and worked with some of those folks.
Right, and 5 to 6, too.
Yep.
Yes, and modeled lessons for those teachers who are anxious and sort of want to get a beat on what's coming for next year.
And then my final question is just logistics in your scheduling, how that looks. So how are you split through the district? Is it set days and set schools? Or do teachers reach out to you for requests of support, and then you visit according to that request?
Sorry, go ahead.
No. Sorry. In the fall, it was more of a set schedule, just so we can make sure everyone's good to go, because it was brand new, obviously. After winter break in December, we stepped back a little bit and said, if you want us, we're more than happy to come in, but if you're feeling like you're ready and you just want to take off on your own, go for it. So we have had some teams that have reached out and said, we still want you in, so we're going in every week to them. And we have some teachers who want us for specific things, whether it's Otis related, benchmark related, or specific tools that they haven't used yet that they want us to go in and model for them.
Okay, so say for instance, I'm a second grade teacher in the district this year, next year, and I have K-1 kids coming, or first grade kids coming in. How am I going to be assured that they all saw the same, finished and mastered the same skills, right? So you said that they can make their own kind of timeline. So if their class needs, 3 days on long multiplication, a skill,
right,
they can take that if necessary. I just need clarification from you as to how are we holding them accountable to make sure that all first grade skills are covered prior to going to second grade.
Well, we meet with the PLCs, most of them at their request. We go in and meet with them, and the teams sit down, and some of the time we go to the PLCs, it's data analysis. Other times it's planning for what's coming ahead. And so we look at what's ahead. Is everybody on the same page? Where are we? Just sort of at the halfway mark, we met with the teams, many of them, and said, all right, where are we? Are we going to finish? Where are we going to be? And do we need to sort of accelerate something and move things around?
Okay.
And so we're on that. I think principals are on that as well. And honestly, if the data, if you get to a point, we looked at the Otis data and looked at what they should have learned, what they should have mastered by now, or what they should have been taught by now. And if there were gaps, what do we do about that?
Right.
So the data
Right.
from Otis and us with the PLCs, I think, is...
And so you're there to tier the support for those classroom teachers that may need that, finding the gaps in their classrooms specifically as well?
I'm not sure if you mean by that, if we're...
Are you helping those
servicing-
teachers that need to have some help with the tiered support? Like say that their class is not meeting the goal that they need to meet. Would you be available to go in and help create resources for them?
Yes.
And to help do
We
it?
will plan with them. I wasn't sure
That's
if you were
exactly
going
what I mean.
with... We're not
tier.
we don't provide direct...
Not direct
student
services,
service.
but you would help them create.
Oh,
that
absolutely.
necessary.
Yes,
Absolutely.
like, for example, one of the things that came out of one of the meetings we had was that balancing equations was something we need to continue to work on in first grade.
Yeah.
So we are actually, with that specific first grade team, we are in there weekly. So depending on what that specific class needed, we have switched up what we were doing, and now we're reviewing balancing equations with those cohorts of kids.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. I think I can now wrap my brain around what it looks like. So thank you for giving me the time to ask my questions.
Of course.
And thank you for all the hard work you do.
It does sound, when they say they have more autonomy and time
Yeah.
in their lesson, there's still, our curriculum overview still is a sequence, and there's time for that unit. But within the unit, they can be flexible.
Right.
So it does seem a little fuzzy when you hear it, but it's still, structured and planned, and there are benchmarks and there are goals that we need to hit. And each unit is written with goals that are directly tied to the standards. And we use the UBD format, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Right.
So, in stage 2, it has all the assessments that are going to be tied, and then we have the learning plan, which is very specific
Right.
in our units, which wouldn't typically be as specific, but because of the support that we have, we're able to do that. And we don't have no resources either. We've purchased other resources. We have Tang Math, which we use, which is almost a program, and we have Generation Genius. We have Break. We have a lot of resources. We use Engage New York, which is free, but it's pretty robust.
Right.
So it's not like they're just on an island and they don't have anything.
Yeah. I thank you very much for your time.
Sure.
Thank you, our clerk. Mrs. Garabedian?
I just had one question about Otis. I mean, I hear a lot about Otis, so I feel like I'm understanding it a little better. And what I'm hearing is that it gives you great data, it gives you the end result. How is it for the user? Is it equally as efficient to enter your information or your data on the user end?
It depends. If you, for example, at the lower level, they give a few more paper-based assessments, if you will, than the upper grades. So in terms of entering that data into Otis, it's very easy. It's like entering it into a gradebook in any other system. In terms of, I would say the thing that's a little more time-consuming that we've been helping with is creating the actual assessments within Otis. That is a little more time-consuming, but that's something that we've been helping with. So if teachers say, I want a formative on adding within 10, we can do that for them and send it right to them. It allows us to share between teachers.
And so there are, just to be clear, there are two ways it can be used. One is sort of to catch all the data as a data collector, and the other is to actually take the assessment on Otis.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
And Mr. Parsons?
Yeah, just two questions. The first one I'm going to direct towards Interim Superintendent Regan. I'm just seeing in the budget the stipend for instructional coaching that teachers provide. I'm just curious what that looks like compared to the instructional coaching the coaches provide.
I'm not sure, because I'm not sure what line you're looking at, but it could very well be the summertime. I was going to add that for your question, Ms. Demos. Our coaches provide lots of summer PD, and teachers attend. In fact, several second grade teachers attended last summer, even though the rollout was going to start at K1. It could pertain to that stipend. It could also pertain to the steering committee, where people get paid above contract hours to host that steering committee. The teachers that attend also get paid. So it could be that.
Okay, to be more specific, it's function code 2354, and for the fiscal year 23 budget, it's allocated at $112,000, $112,120. I need a math coach. We can revisit this, but I'm just curious what that would exactly look like. It's a significant amount of money.
I'd have to lean on Mr. Libby for that code number and the explanation.
I believe that encapsulates a few things. It's our summer PD, and I believe our PLC leader stipends goes into that function code now.
So it probably doesn't just apply to the coaches, but I can get back to you on that, Mr. Parsons. I don't have the answer that you're looking for tonight, but we can give you a more detailed explanation of what that line item is including.
Okay, thank you. And then, so just to clarify, so right now teachers can choose to engage with this as much as they want. Is that fair to say?
Grades K to 1 must use it with fidelity. They must follow the overview and they must follow the units that we have written. Grades 2 to 4 have to follow the overview, but they do still have access to Go Math to use as a resource for this year. Next year, they will not have Go Math, and we will be implementing this with fidelity with them as well.
Okay. And so they're following a common sequence that they have to follow. Are there common assessments too?
Yes, so within the UBD models, stage 1 is the essential questions, the skills, the knowledge, the understandings. Stage 2 is where you find any formatives and summatives that we've created or that teams have felt are needed, so we've inputted those into the stage 2. And then stage 3 is their learning plan, their lesson by lesson.
Okay, and who's doing the accountability to make sure that, teachers K-1 are following it with fidelity? My concern is just instructional coaches aren't in an evaluative role. Is that correct?
Correct.
So I'm just wondering, how does that work accountability-wise? It doesn't sound very autonomous to the teacher. I'm just curious what that looks like.
That would be the building principal, and obviously the STEM director, Ms. Jason Stamp, will meet with the building principal on a regular basis. It's those formative, common assessments. Formative means as we go along. Summative means when it's done. For people that aren't with the lingo in education, the formative direct our instruction. The summative tells us, and formative as well, if the students are meeting the goals of those lessons, which are the standards. So the standard scope and sequence, or a curriculum overview, are followed. Teachers at every grade level are doing those assessments on those standards. That's why we need that rolling steering committee, because teachers have quite a bit of empowerment in restructuring and revisiting the lesson plans. Because if we find in a tiered system that we need more supports, for example, for number sense standards, which was the issue we were addressing in the revision of our improved math curriculum, then that would be addressed in that steering committee and through the formative approach. There are multiple lesson choices as well aligned to those standards. It's not only one lesson per this standard. We have multiple resources that we found very effective, and we'll continue to improve on that list of those. I also want to say that it really, the enthusiasm, the work, the commitment of this group up here. I know Mr. Stamp opened the presentation with a thank you to the committee, because you've supported this level of support to our teachers is just invaluable. It's difficult. First of all, I'm sorry, not Journeys, we're going to go there in a little bit. Go Math is a very outdated, ineffective math program, and we know that. It was our obligation, our responsibility to improve number sense, math understanding early on. If we're going to improve math understanding all the way up the grade levels, it starts at the earliest of grade levels. And not by memorizing, by participating in real high quality lessons that really give students concrete to pictorial to abstract understanding, so they can do math further down. So that what you've heard tonight is a summary, and I could go on all night because it's so exciting. There is quite a level of not only accountability but desire to improve math instruction at the earliest of grade levels, and our teachers all the way up the grade level chain need and want this as well. So I look forward to you seeing and hearing more, but I can assure you our teachers want to be accountable to that. We call it our curriculum overview, but it's really a scope and sequence of the order of standards for good reason that they've been put in that order, and those are their objectives in the lesson planning.
May I respond to Mr. Parsons' question as well about accountability? Principals, I mean, this buck really stops with Mr. Stamp, but it stops with the principals, and the principals and the administrators all have access to Otis, so they can go in at any time and look and see how the kiddos are doing within classrooms. They can do it across grade levels. We just met with all the teams actually at the Heathbrook School with Felicia, and we went over the data and made plans for how we're going to remediate and what the sort of the high points, low points were. We also working with the CPTs and the PLCs. It's sort of, there are no outliers, and I think if there were an outlier, certainly we're not in any sort of evaluative position, but it's a team effort within each grade level team, and were there sort of an outlier, I think they would sort of out themselves, and if that, I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but they'd sort of sink to the bottom, and the team would know it, the principals would know it, Jason would know it. And it's all in data. I mean, there's so much in Otis that it's there in black and white.
Okay. Yeah, and I do have to say, this has been a lot of work. Anytime you bring in something new, it's a lot of work. If we brought in a brand new book to replace Go Math and just use that program, it'd be a lot of work. We're lucky that we have this wraparound support for our teachers, where it's amazing. We've never had that. You bring in a program and you have a PD day once, beginning of the year, and good luck. Hopefully it gets done, and you might have another one in the middle of the year. So we've had this really good plan in place with phasing in it. It's fantastic. And I have to say, kudos to the teachers. They're doing a fantastic job. It's unbelievable If you just go and see what's happening in classrooms, and I don't know if you read through the quote, I mean, they clicked through that slide pretty quick. That was my favorite slide. One of the teachers said, you know, we were at addition, and it's easy now, because they understand how to decompose numbers. They understand that. Now, we spent the time at the beginning, and it was like, how are we gonna have all this time to do all this stuff? But they spent the time at the beginning, and now the addition is easy. And that's what's starting to happen. The kids have the understanding, they're not memorizing things anymore. It's a whole different way of doing it. It's amazing, it really is. And I really have to applaud our teachers. They're doing a fantastic job, really are.
All right, and that's all I have. Thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you.
Mr. Parsons, Mr. Stanley?
Yeah, just real quick, for Mr. Stamp, we've got 5,500 devices out there, grubby little hands, to put it gently. We've got 400 laptops being banged around by admins, 300 boards being whacked around. How do you keep all this stuff up? Where's the army?
We have a really good team. It's a small army.
Yeah.
I have 3, 5, 6, about 6 people.
Okay.
Including myself. But we have a really, really strong team. I have 3 really strong admin that take care of the infrastructure for me. I have a person specifically dedicated for student devices. So anytime there's issues with a kid and the parent calls and the device isn't working, that's the go-to point person for that. We have all of our systems in place. Everything's automated. So if the ticketing system we've updated. Yeah, I mean, we just have kind of a really well-oiled machine. I want to pat myself on the back, and it's going pretty well.
You should.
The one-to-one at the high school this year, at the beginning of the year, we had a couple bumps in the road where kids were forgetting the device, and we were giving them another one, and then we weren't getting that one back, and then they come in the next day, and whoa, we had to figure that out quick. And now I know exactly, I can see a list, and it's immediate. I can see this kid has a device, he borrowed it. That's not the one that we gave him, and at the end of the day, the kid gets an email, don't forget to return your device. And that list goes away at the end of the day. And we found all the devices that were missing for a little while. So yeah, we have a really good team and we're managing it. And that's why, I mean, I was afraid of one-to-one for a little while. How would we manage that?
Right.
And it's gone really smoothly this year. And I walk up and down, I'm here a lot now because my team's here. The IT department moved here temporarily because of all the moves that are happening, construction and all that. And I walk down the hall and I see kids in the hall all the time on their Chromebooks. It's invaluable at this point. I mean, it's almost like a pencil. How can you do anything without it at this point? Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
Great. I think my colleagues covered it all. I'd like to say thank you for the presentation. I know I met early on. I think Mrs. Demos was with us in a joint labor management meeting with some teacher concerns. I'm thrilled to hear from Mr. Stamp how excited the teachers are. I know, as you said, rolling out something new is difficult, and it's wonderful to see the supports that they have, and more importantly, how it seems like they're embracing, this change, and I hope next year goes smoothly as well. So thank you for all you do for our students and our teachers and their families. So,
Mr. Chair, if I could just have one more minute.
sure.
I feel like I had so many questions rolling through my brain because from the outside in, trying to figure out how the 3 of you could get this implemented across the district in all K-1 classrooms was hard for me to visualize because I don't see it every day. So I don't think that I was clear in my appreciation for the effort that went into this and for the consistency, because I think maybe my principal hat went on about data and trying to figure out that all the kids are being tracked of who, everyone's on our radar and we're supporting them, and you don't need something from us as far as like more support. So I just needed you to hear from me before we move on to the next agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I just was checking the accounts that go
Yep.
into that 2354 category
Sure.
for next question, and it's the mentee mentor stipends for our mentor program, as well as the PLC stipends that make up that 119.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Libby.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Stamp.
Mr.
Thank you,
Stamp.
team.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aw.
And moving on to our ELA updates for elementary.
Well, we just heard some of the changes. If you can imagine, we're 2 years behind in the updating and piloting and updating of our 2 core curriculum resources, especially at our elementary grades, that being math and now ELA. With us tonight is Principal Felicia Chinanovich from the Heathbrook School. I know helping her with this presentation was also our literacy coach, Ms. Chloe Callahan, and Felicia is going to present where we are currently with our K through 6 ELA resource improvements.
All right. So I just want to take a second to thank Mr. Chair, the committee members, and Superintendent Regan for allowing me some time tonight to present a brief overview to you of this exciting process of adopting a new K-6 literacy curriculum resource for our district. And it's fitting that it follows that conversation, which is great. So before we dive into just going through the adoption process, it's important to know where we are right now. So currently we use HMH Journeys, which Superintendent Regan mentioned earlier. It's a K-6 ELA curriculum resource. We adopted it in 2016, and we committed to a 6-year contract with Journeys. But our hope is that in this process of adopting new instructional materials, we're going to articulate a new vision for excellent ELA instruction and initiate a transition that helps us to get a higher quality, standards-aligned curriculum resource that really addresses all the needs of the students in Tucson public schools. Woo. Great. All right, so the big why. So you probably understand after listening to the prior presentation that districts go through cycles of adopting new materials. So that's where we are with ELA right now, but there's lots of pieces we look at as we look to bring in a new resource. Of course, one of the key pieces is looking at literacy data, and at the K-6 level, we have some key assessments we look at to help us know where our students are showing strength and where there's areas or opportunities for growth. So at the lower elementary level, we use something called DIBELS, and that helps us identify those early foundational skills with our young readers. We also use a system called Scholastic Next, and grades 5 and 6 use RLI, and those are assessments that help us to understand how students decode actual text and how they understand text. Of course, there's MCAS data to look at, and as Superintendent Regan mentioned before, formative assessments. So those are the assessments that happen in classrooms all year long. They help us know where students are at, and teachers can adjust their instruction in the moment. So those are all important pieces we look at. And when we did that, and we spoke to our teachers and got feedback from them, we realized where the gaps were in the current ELA resource. So teachers expressed to us, given what they were seeing in the classroom and using Journeys, that there was a weakness in the systematic explicit instruction in phonics and phonemic awareness. Those are those foundational reading skills. Journeys is also weaker in writing development, academic vocabulary, and diverse and inclusive text selection. So those are areas we really need to pay attention to when we're looking at bringing a new literacy resource in. We also gave a survey to our teaching staff at the K-6 level recently, and we asked them to give us some feedback not only on their concerns or their wishes for a new reading curriculum, but also in terms of the timeline or the rollout. So after looking at the survey results, we understood that the majority of teachers wanted to continue with Journeys for school year 22-23, considering that they're also balancing these new math curriculum units, and we have a big transition to our new school building next year. So that's a lot on the plate. The majority of teachers also wanted to support implementation of a new ELA curriculum for school year 23-24. And what that does is it really gives us all of next year to go through a pilot process. That's going to give us great lead time to do this right. Also, the majority supported piloting a new curriculum versus just purchasing one. And 32% of teachers were interested in participating in that pilot, which is great to hear. So, we have something new in the district already based on the feedback teachers had been giving us about those weaknesses in phonics and phonemic awareness. So actually, right before the pandemic hit, we purchased something called, oh, I'm not hitting the slides. Jason, you might have to be my co-pilot here. Yeah, will you work the slides for me? Thank you. So new in the district is foundations, and we actually purchased it right before the pandemic. In fact, the boxes were just arriving as school was closing. So we had to put the rollout on pause momentarily. But last year, when we were in the remote hybrid model, teachers were able to open up the materials. Our literacy specialists were great in terms of helping our teams walk through the foundations materials and use components of it in preparation for a full implementation this year. So if you're not familiar with this program, it's a Wilson-based program. It's for K-3 students. It covers phonemic awareness, phonics, word study, reading fluency, vocab, handwriting, and spelling. And the wonderful thing about it is it's built into our core reading instruction every day for all students. So it's about 30 minutes long. It includes the entire classroom, and it's taught by our general education teachers. Some things you might make note of is that it aligns with our rigorous standards, state standards. But it's also important to note that it's not a standalone program. It needs to be paired with a literature-based language program for a full comprehensive approach to reading. So the way that we're using it right now is we're supplanting the phonics portion of Journeys and putting in foundations instead. And although we've only been using it, this school year, the results are really promising. Just in observations in classrooms, teachers have really embraced the program and are in full implementation mode. And looking at our middle of the year data, we've already seen some tremendous growth. Particularly at the Heathbrook, I've seen the biggest jump with our kindergarten students. So that's great to see. All right, so here are some key thoughts we wanted to express as we think about this process for the district. We know that selecting materials is a decision worthy of study and time. And we also wanted to express that in order to be a viable option, we want to look at programs that have been reviewed and highly rated by two organizations. One is called Ed Reports, and the other is called DESE Curate. There's links there for you as well. DESE Curate is actually a curriculum rating by teachers program, the Department of Ed. So that organization, what it does is it rates and compares current reading programs out there on the market. And it's very comprehensive. We know that local context and our instructional vision should drive this decision-making process. And more importantly, educator voice and expertise must be at the center of this decision. Materials we know should be aligned to high standards, attend to instructional shifts, and really be based on the science of reading, those key 5 components: phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocab, and comprehension. And of course, professional development and the implementation needs to be considered right from the beginning. And our literacy coach and our reading specialist will be key in that process. All right, so if you're new to the adoption process, these are the key steps that we go through in order to make a decision. So you have preparation, where you establish your process and you develop your lens. You have the study period, and for us that would be the majority of next year, where we get to know and examine what our choices are, and then we decide and launch. So we make a decision and implement the new reading program. So right now, we're kind of in that preparation study phase. We've done a little work. Obviously, we want to be clear about our purpose and the goal. And it's really to adopt and implement a high-quality, standards-aligned resource. What's the instructional vision for our students? Well, we want to develop the necessary skills in reading, writing, speaking, and listening that are the foundations for creative and purposeful expression and language. We want our students to engage with high-quality, complex texts, and we also want them to apply these skills while reading and writing independently and be able to persevere even if the work is challenging. What's next? Well, based on the teacher feedback and conversations with our staff, the district has decided they'll extend the use of Journeys for school year 22 and 23, while continuing to research, plan, and pilot a new reading program. So with input from our teaching staff, our admin team, and our literacy teachers, we've drafted the following timeline so we can walk you through what that process is going to look like and ultimately how we're going to decide our new reading curriculum. So if you look at the spring, March to May, we've already begun using Ed Reports and Curate to research our programs. We have a short list right now that we're working with. We're going to apply that district lens and that vision we talked about so we can narrow it down to 2 or 3 programs. And then what we'd like to do is conduct local site visits with our teachers and our admin to local schools that are using these programs so that we can get some anecdotal feedback from the staff that are using them, and we can see it kind of happening live. We'd also like to reach out to the publishers and have them send along some materials and samples and set up presentations so we can get to know the programs, what the potential strengths and weaknesses are, and how it applies to our local needs. And then ultimately, at the end of the spring, we'll decide on 2 programs that we want to pilot for next year. In June, we'll make sure that we identify the K-6 teachers who would like to volunteer to pilot the programs next year. And we'll make sure that we get those materials from the publishers and have some summer training sessions so they're prepared to pilot as we go into next fall. And then over the course of next year, we'll be piloting those programs, but there's 2 key components we need to think about. So we need to form a literacy curriculum review team. That would probably be comprised of district administration, principals, and educators who are piloting, so we can get together regularly and see how the implementation is going and provide support as needed. One of the other exciting things that we're thinking about is to schedule stakeholder engagement sessions. So over the course of the year, we'll have presentations where parents can come in, teachers, not just the ones that are piloting, community partners, school committee members, and even students maybe at the upper levels to come in and explore the 2 programs and get, their questions answered about them. And then ultimately next spring, after we finish the pilot, we will compare strengths and gaps in the 2 options, analyze the feedback that we've collected over the year from all the stakeholders, and assess how much work it will take to implement both of these programs, considering the implications and the initiatives that are going on in the district and the capacity of our staff. At that point, we'll make a presentation to the school committee with our recommendation and ultimately make a final decision on the program. And then we get busy preparing folks for it. So June through August would be ordering the materials, getting to know the materials, and planning that short and long-term game for PD, professional development. I think one of the important things we need to do is create a feedback system so teachers constantly are able to give us their feedback and let us know what they need specifically for PD. Again, I think our literacy coach and our reading specialist will be key in that implementation. All right, so what do we know? We know when teachers have access to high-quality, aligned instructional materials, it really makes a big difference in the classroom and in their practice and in the instruction that students receive. So it's an exciting process we're about to undertake. Any questions?
Great, thank you, Mrs. Jananovich. I'll start to my right with Mr. Parsons.
What's the future plan with literacy coaches? So I know the number of them is changing next year, is that correct?
Yes, and we've built an additional elementary literacy coach into our some of our grants so that we will have more support, much like we have with the math. We're also, as Principal Chinanovich articulated, helping to train our reading specialists as well, so that when they're in the school, they not only provide Tier 1 push-in, they also provide interventions. So we want to use them as well to model good reading lessons in the classroom.
Great. And they'll be split equitably across the elementary schools? Or is it starting K1 and then scaling up?
Yes, it's going to be important that they predominantly support the elementary grades, especially with, I just want to say, curriculum is everything that happens in the teaching and learning process, whether it's instructional materials, the teacher, the student, the assessment. This is a curricular resource that will support that, and we're definitely going to need the staff, much like we did with math, to support the teachers in doing that. There's just not enough PD even in a day, in a year. You know, it really happens when there's support, when you roll out a new curricula resource.
Okay. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons. Mrs. Garabedian?
Thank you for being here today. I did have the opportunity to visit the Heathbrook last week, which was perfect timing because I was able to be witness to some of the foundation's exercises, which were actually pretty cool to see. And organically, it was nice to be able to talk to some of the teachers and get some feedback real time for some of that. So that's exciting. I think a lot of the things that I saw in the classroom were pretty great. My only question, as you and the district are looking towards new curriculum, is there any thought for how ELA may be embedded in other
Yes.
courses and things like that?
I know what
so you're
you're
not just kind of
asking, yeah. So a lot of these programs have the science and social studies curriculum built right in. So we'd be looking for that as well, that cross-curricular piece to it. And that's how social studies really gets embedded now in the classrooms through the ELA texts.
And I'm thinking more kind of the upper grades, like your 5, 6, and 3, 4, more so than
I think we'd have to be looking at that all the way through.
because that would be pretty great.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Agree. You're welcome.
Great, thank you. Mrs. Demos?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for this. It's exciting. I have to say that it makes me feel a little old in the fact that I was a pilot teacher for Journeys. And I was so proud and excited with what it had to offer. And here we are, how many years later? The one thing that kind of piqued my interest, and thank you for pausing for next year, because I think the teachers have enough on their plates for the movement of the new school and the unknowns of, January date and getting in. I think it would be a lot to ask them to be doing that as well.
Yeah.
So thank you.
That
Thank
was
you for
heard
that.
and acknowledged, absolutely.
Yes, yes. The timeline, the only question that came to my mind looking at it is, would we be better served to try to tweak that to a March, that March to May timeline there? If maybe we could start getting materials decision made closer into like a March, April timeline so the teachers could have their hands on the materials in May, June instead of over their summer, where we say like,
do you mean for the pilot this year, or you mean?
So no, when you're looking at that 2023 timeline, now I'm
Yes.
sorry, I bumped ahead of myself. When you're looking at that May 2023 plan for the procurement and distribution of materials, I'm just thinking with the teacher hat on now of that's late in the school year, and that I'd love to be able to have it in my hands and flip through it and see what questions I have for my principal, for my literacy coach, for my assistant superintendent curriculum, before my summer begins, so that I can then take and create what I need to create for my centers and things over the summer.
Yep, absolutely. And I think this timeline is really a living document that's probably going to shift and evolve as we go.
Right.
This was kind of our first swing at a draft of how it could play out over the next year and a few months. So I think that's completely reasonable.
Yeah, and I think that it's very, I think you have a great plan in place, and I'm excited to see us get some more literacy coaches on board and things, because like my colleague Bridget was talking, it really isn't just that 45-minute block anymore. When we're talking ELA, it's cross-curricular and across the day. We're going to be looking to get these materials in that we can kind of be excited with and get that diversity in, and not these antiquated books that we have in front of us now.
We're excited
So thank
to
you
look
for
at the new
everything,
options.
and best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stanman.
I just want to echo Ms. Demos. I mean, great presentation, and again, I don't have any questions, but wish you the best of luck with the search, the pilot.
Thank you.
And the
It's going to be an
implementation.
exciting process, so
Yes.
we're looking forward to updating you. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. That gets us to Citizens Forum. Is there anyone in the audience this evening that wishes to speak to any agenda item? Seeing none, we will move on to our approval of minutes. And our clerk, Mrs. Garabedian.
Okay, I'd first like to look at Wednesday, February 9th. The only thing I would like to bring attention to is when we returned from executive session and we came back for our public hearing on the budget, I think we were a little bit later than 6:03 PM. Do we have an exact time on that?
Yep, I do. Looking at my notes here, I think we just had a clerical error from our secretary at 5:31 PM. I believe, looking at my notes here, that should read 6:03 PM, that the actual meeting was convened for the public hearing.
5:31, entertain the motion. Oh, so February 9th does say 6:03 PM. Am I looking at the wrong date?
And where are you
I
looking?
might have been looking at the wrong. I don't know, maybe.
Or maybe I was looking at the wrong thing. Garabedian, public hearing. Yep, I'm sorry, you are correct.
Okay,
So that, yes, that is correct.
okay, so no changes.
No change.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for Wednesday, February 9th, 2022, as written, no changes, no amendments.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the February 9th, 2022 regular school committee minutes as presented this evening. All those in favor, please signify by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? The chair votes aye as well, with one notation that Mr. Stadman will be abstaining as he did not attend that evening. That's a 4-0 vote. Mrs. Clerk, Madam
Yes,
Clerk?
and I'd like to make a motion to approve meeting minutes from Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022. This was a special meeting as written, as presented.
Okay.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the February 22nd, 2022 special school committee meeting. All those in favor, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye as well. A 5-0 vote. Thank you, Mrs. Garabedian. And our submission and payment of bills, please.
Okay, just a moment. All right, I move the school department payroll for the period ending to be approved and certified in the amounts and categories as shown for a total amount of $1,441,917.94 for the date of 2/17/2022.
I'll second.
Okay, before we move to a vote, just looking on our agenda, I have 217, and Mrs. Demos, can you please check yours? On the actual packet, I have 144191794.
Correct.
On the agenda, I have 1447, 178, and 77. Make sure I'm reading that correctly.
1447, 178.
Is that what you have as well?
On my agenda, that's what I have.
Okay.
Packet reads 1441917.94.
Okay, why don't we do this? Why don't we put a hold on that vote as we check the March, turn your March 3rd over for me, Mrs. Demos, and we can check those dates. I have on, what would you like to look at? What are you looking at?
I have in my packet,
Okay, I'll look at my agenda. I have 1.537958 and 42 cents.
same.
Okay, so we will table the February 17th, 2022 payment of bills so we can get that clarified. And
Okay.
Mrs. Garabedian?
So I'd like to move the school department payroll for the period ending 5/3/2022 to be approved and certified in the amounts and categories as shown for a total amount of $1,537,958.42.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the payroll period ending March 3rd, 2022, in the amount of $1,537,958.42. All those in favor, please signify by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? The chair votes aye as well. That's a 5-0 vote. Thank you, Mrs. Garabedian. And moving on to our superintendent and staff report, I'm going to turn the floor over to our interim superintendent, Mrs. Brenda Regan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your consent agenda, you'll see an updated center school relocation directory. As I promised, each time one of our departments moves out of the center school, I will update this directory for you. Our special education department moved over here to the Tewksbury Memorial High School during the February vacation. Parents of special ed students were notified of the move, and the updated directory has been posted to our district website. Next, February 28th also marked the date when masks became optional at Tewksbury Public Schools, on our school buses, at all school events, and even tonight. So it's really nice to see everybody smiling and all of the expressions with the wonderful information you're receiving. Principals report to us that approximately 20% of our students and teachers are still wearing masks, as that is optional, and we certainly support everybody's choice in that. And some students are getting very well, they make their own decision depending on the situation that they're in or the environment they're in, and depending how crowded it is. So what I'm more pleased to tell you is we did not see the spike in COVID numbers coming back from the February vacation that we did coming back from December, the December recess, where we saw over 250 active cases of COVID within our schools. Right now, we have 11. So that is really exciting news, and I will say to anybody who is watching still, we're still utilizing all the mitigation strategies we have at our schools with enhanced cleaning, our weekly pool testing, and certainly the at-home optional test kits. Any parents who are still interested in obtaining optional test kits can do so through the link on our COVID dashboard. March is a very long and exhausting month for students, for teachers, and for families. So I just warn our families, in the upcoming weeks you'll be receiving many new pieces of information for the rest of the school year. Please pay attention to the principal newsletters. In fact, our parent-teacher conferences that will be occurring in March and April will have now a hybrid option. Parents may be able to choose an in-person conference or virtual. We've had several parents say they still prefer the virtual because this allows them to go into another room of the house, not get a babysitter, and still attend multiple conferences virtually. So that option will be coming through communications from the building principal. The Tewksbury Memorial High School had to reschedule its social host laws presentation. That has been rescheduled to March 23rd, 2022. This will be a live stream presentation. The link will be again shared out to parents of junior and senior students prior to the event. This is a required presentation that both parent, guardian, and students that are juniors or seniors that plan on attending junior prom or the senior events must attend and verify that they have attended. Have you attended, Mr. Stadman? Yes. Thank you. As a parent of a senior. Okay. I have. Mr. Libby alluded to this in his presentation of the budget, but since our last school committee meeting, you should know we received notice and approval of our Sr3 Grant. It has been approved for approximately $2.77 million. The criteria of this grant requires that we spend it on or by September 1st, 2024, and on issues of learning loss, supports, resources, additional staff that address learning loss, and health and safety needs of our schools. The criteria of this grant, it required that 20% of the grant funds were for learning loss. The Tewksbury Public Schools has dedicated over 50% of this grant towards learning loss, as I said, resources and support staff. Our approval of the Sr3 implementation grant has been posted to the district website in compliance with the grant requirements. Okay, next, I'm happy to inform you of another grant that we just recently received approval of. This is the FY22, so this school year, Accelerated Literacy Learning with High-Quality Instructional Resources Grant from DESE. We have been awarded $200,000, and the plan is to use these funds towards the improvement of our ELA curriculum that you just saw the presentation about. Sometimes pilots run for free, and sometimes they don't. We plan to use these grant dollars to purchase pilot resources so that we may have several of the resources available to all staff that want to either participate or try them on. The challenge for this grant is that we have to spend it by June 30th of 2022. So we're happy to try to spend it, but it is a challenge. Next, a quick update just for parents. Mandated state testing has been completed for our English learners. That is called the access testing. Stumbling a little bit here. Our MCAS testing kicks off on the week of March 21st for sophomores at the Tewksbury Memorial High School. Again, parents are encouraged to look at our district calendar where all of the MCAS specific testing dates are listed for each grade level. This next update, I think you'll find, you'll be very proud to hear. As a result, to the event, the unfortunate event, I should say, that happened between Billerica High School students and Tewksbury Memorial High School students at the conclusion of one of our athletic events, a collaborative meeting. Two meetings actually have occurred through Billerica High School students and administrative staff and the Tewksbury Memorial High School administrative staff and students. Principal John Bernard, together with our athletic director, Mr. Druin, with Principal Tom Murphy of Billerica High School and their athletic director, John Magliozzi, assembled a team of 24 students, 12 from each district. They're made up of juniors and seniors, 6 of each, and are represented equally with males and females. They've met twice so far, on March 1st here at the high school, Tewksbury Memorial High School, and then on March 4th at Billerica High School. They have established some short-term and long-term goals and identified some action planning for the students. Specifically around appreciating the commonalities that students all share, regardless of what district they come from, and how they might maintain consistency and positive relationships as they proceed through this planning. They're going to use their experience to role model with other students in other districts to the Merrimack Valley Conference and those league types of events and meetings. So we're really just so proud, not only because they're participating in this type of activity, but their significant willingness. That's a quote from Mr. Druin. The willingness of these two districts to come together, do this work for themselves, but for other students and districts to learn from. We're so proud of the students and certainly thankful to the administrative team for this planning and future planning of these types of events. Our students have certainly learned that they could be opponents on the playing field, but friends and have positive relations both on and off the field. So I hope you appreciate that update. We certainly do as a district and look forward to hearing more from them. Okay, Tewksbury Memorial High School also has a lot to be proud of because the boys hockey team defeated Longmeadow Monday 3-0. This win moves them into the state quarterfinals on Friday night at Breakaway Ice at 6:00 p.m. Mr. Druin, our athletic director, expects that this will be a sellout. This is quite an exciting game. Tickets are for sale on GoFan by simply typing in TMHS. You should find those. Again, tickets will sell out fast, I'm sure. I want to give you a little bit of an update on our kindergarten registration process. NESDEC projects that we will have approximately 260 kindergarten students next school year. I will say it's a little inconsistent with the surprisingly high town census report, which shows approximately 300 kindergarten students. I can tell you NESDEC is very consistent and has been very accurate many, many years in a row. What I can tell you currently, 233 scheduled kindergarten registration appointments are now currently through our student family and sport Director, Ms. Baker O'Brien. We have completed 123 of them, which means we have 110 left that are scheduled. We'll continue to watch that number. If we're surprised by more than that NESDEC number, we'll be coming back to inform you, because that will certainly impact our staffing needs for kindergarten. So right now, we're in line with where we thought we are in our current staffing, but as I said, we're keeping our eye on that. While that concludes my updates, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you want me to update you on that DECA field trip, or if you'd like to take questions on the updates first. This does require a vote.
Yeah, let's do the question on the updates, and I'm just wondering if you had any other collective bargaining updates as well?
Well, you've informed us a little bit earlier in the budget hearing, but we do have, the school committee has taken and unanimously voted to ratify the school nurses memorandum of understanding. I can also tell you we've been meeting, ongoing meeting with the custodians and the secretaries, and we're in a really good place with the draft memorandum of understanding. And then this Friday, our TTA, both the teachers unit and the educational support personnel, formerly known as our aides, will be taking a ratification vote on the agreements we have on the table currently.
Great. Thank you. Any questions?
No questions. I would just like to say thank you very much on behalf of, the pull together for the students, Mr. Druin, Mr. Bernard, and administration also for, just how that whole situation was managed, handled, and that, you were able to make all that stuff happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll just emphasize what Mrs. Garabedian just said. I have no other questions.
Anyone else?
Not tonight, thank you.
Do you know if they're done meeting, Mrs. Regan? The Tewksbury and Borica students?
It's my understanding that they will continue meeting. Some of their plans, I mean, it's phenomenal. They plan on having captains meet prior to each event, fan representatives meet prior to each event. So they'll continue to meet, and they'll continue to work out some of the goals and action plans that they have. I have it right here. Several captains meetings, postseason MVC recognition of sportsmanship, together in collaborative. So I don't know what their schedule is to continue meeting, but the students have created this nice long list of opportunities that are ahead of them that they would like to put into their routine throughout their athletic time. Not only Billerica Tewksbury, but through MVC league events as well.
Well, I think it's wonderful. Unfortunate things happen all the time, and I think it's how you react to them which really defines who you are, and not just here in Tewksbury, but the Borica deserves a tremendous amount of respect as well. We might be opponents here today in an athletic event, but those kids are going to go off to college places, and they're going to find out they have much more commonality than they ever thought, and I think that's just wonderful work. I know some of those kids, they were really wowed by Chick-fil-A. That helped, I'm not going to lie to you, when they went over to Borica. I think I heard from most of those kids how exciting that was. So I think it's wonderful. And like I said, I know it's more than just Mr. Druin and the athletic directors. So, kudos for everyone to be able to put that incident behind and hopefully build off it, prevent it from ever happening, not only here, but in Borica, but other places as well. So.
Yeah, well put.
So
Thank
great
you.
work, thank you. And Mr. Libby, anything to add?
No, I think the superintendent hit most of the highlights we've had in the last month. I think Mr. Druin does want a Chick-fil-A addition to his budget for next year to keep up with the Borica folks, but we can take that up at the next meeting.
Okay.
We fed Billerica too. It just wasn't Chick-fil-A.
Apparently it's powerful, so. All right, we're now moving on to our consent agenda. Do any of my colleagues have any questions, comments, concerns regarding this evening's consent agenda as presented? All right, seeing none. I'll entertain a motion to accept tonight's consent.
I'll make a motion to accept tonight's consent agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve this evening's consent agenda as presented. All those in favor, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the chair votes aye as well. Tonight's consent agenda is approved. Thank you. Moving on to school committee member reports. Our elementary school building committee, Mrs. Demos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend the last school building committee, so I may defer an update to Ms. Regan or to Mr. Statman if they were there. I do want, however, note that I will be going tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, and it's important to note that we will be meeting tomorrow night at the Ryan School, where typically we would be meeting at the town hall. So we do have some residents that are regular attendees, and I think it's important to note that tomorrow the meeting itself will be at the Ryan School. Ms. Regan?
If I might, members of, well, the abutters to the center school and to the project, as well as Ryan School parents, have been invited, if they'd like to attend the pre-ESBC meeting or Center Elementary School Committee meeting at 5:30, where there'll be an update on the when the contractor takes over the center school and starts the abatement and demolition of that school. So we want to update not only the abutters, but the parents of the Ryan, so they understand the impact that that will have on recess and things like that. We obviously won't mix students with construction, so we have some shifts. And then the handout that we provide at that meeting will be provided to the Ryan parents as well that may not be able to attend.
And can I just have, for clarification purposes, that handout will also put up on line as well?
Yes, we'll put it on the ESBC website.
Perfect, thanks.
Great, thank you, Mrs. Demos. Tewksbury CPAC, Mr. Parsons.
Yes. On Thursday, March 10th at 7 p.m., there will be a support group for families of children with special needs on IEPs or 504s. That'll be through a Zoom link. In previous two business meetings, there was more discussion on supports for families that can be available for them to access. The most recent meeting included a presentation from the Seven Hills Collaborative. They have a few locations. One is in Chelmsford. It was just great to hear all of the free available resources that parents in town with students with special needs can access. If there's any more interest, they should reach tewksburycpac@gmail.com.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Parsons. And Mrs. Garabedian, our wellness.
Yes, we have a meeting 2 weeks from today. That will be on Wednesday, March 23rd. Mr. Sullivan, you're the second member there. I unfortunately won't be there because of the superintendent search obligations, but that's our next meeting.
All right, we'll certainly make sure I have that in my calendar and in attendance. Thank you, Mrs. Garabedian.
Yes.
And Mr. Stadman, our policy?
No meeting, but we do need to get one on the books because there has been a few suggestions forwarded to myself.
Thank you, Mr. Stadman. And moving on to, we don't have any policies this evening. Old business, Mrs. Regan, for our professional development update.
Yes, next Wednesday, March 16th, is a no-school day for students, but a full professional development day for our faculty and staff. The focus of our PD will be on our professional learning community practices in their observable impact work that they've been doing all throughout the school year. There'll also be multiple special education specific content-related professional development series, specifically targeting the needs of our dyslexia instruction and the survey that Mass General Hospital did with all of our staff last month. I also want to remind you, we are having, Tewksbury Public Schools is joining many districts in the Commonwealth to take the pledge to prevent child sexual abuse and to prevent boundary crossing behaviors in our schools through the course called Enough. Teachers report that the most common reason for not reporting child sexual abuse is a lack of confidence in their ability to identify it and respond appropriately. While the problem of child sexual abuse is disturbing, this course is positive and hopeful in tone and approach. It helps schools build their knowledge and strengthen their practices in this important area of child protection. So it's going to be a full day of learning, collaborative practice, and most importantly, added protection for our students through our PD program. So we've collaborated with through our joint labor management meetings, and see the need for a course like this, and as I said, join many 5,000 teachers and administrators in the district, in the Commonwealth, who have all decided to take this pledge in protecting all of our students at Tewksbury Public Schools.
Great. Thank you, Mrs. Regan. Any comments, questions?
No questions? Okay.
All right, seeing none, we're going to move to school committee matters of interest. I'll start to my right, Mr. Parsons.
Yes. This weekend for indoor track and field was the New England Meet of Champions, where Alex Arbogast ran first in the 55 meters, which is a tremendous accomplishment. I believe he's the first boy in the history of the program to do so. And to put it in terms of postseason, so you'd have to qualify for a sectional meet, qualify then for an all-state meet, and then you can go against New England. So it's a great accomplishment. That's it for me.
Great, thank you very much. Mrs. Garabedian?
I just wanted to mention, I don't have any children still at the Trahan School, but I do have children that did attend, and I know how Mr. Harding's Peter Pan has been so amazing in the past. So I was excited to learn that they're going to put that show on again this year on April 1st. And I commend the students, the staff, everybody who's been part of this, because it's an awesome thing for these kids to do. So I wanted to mention that. And then I also wanted to mention that I, this Saturday, attended the Massachusetts Association of School Committees leadership meeting for Board of Directors and Division Officers. I'm the clerk for our division, Division 1. So it was a really neat opportunity to sit and talk with other school committee members about issues that are facing school boards right now, and thoughts on how to better access and support new school committee members. So that was a really interesting day for me. I wanted to also thank the staff at the Heathbrook for allowing me to pop into their classrooms this Thursday, and during Read Across America, read to it was Teresa Enos's class, and she had a really nice class. So it was a nice opportunity, and I wanted to say thank you to them.
Great, thank you, Mrs. Garabedian. Mrs. Demos?
Just want to say that the Tewksbury Memorial High School Theater Company has made my day with my favorite movie ever coming, so I can't wait now. I've got that in my books for the 28th and 29th. Going to have to get one of my daughters home from college to go see it with me. But I also wanted to have a shout out to, I had the privilege to attend one of the girls' high school basketball team playoff games, and they were remarkable, and I think that we should be having a big shout out to them as well, as far as wishing everyone else out there that's still playing, including our hockey team, some good luck. I think that, the sportsmanships and the friendships and the responsibility that comes along with being part of a team is incredible and invaluable, and I just wish them all the best.
And Mr. Stadman?
Do you want me to? Okay. Can I make it a point of honor, of order?
Sure.
That Mrs. Regan speaks?
Okay.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Mr. Stadman. What I have in front of me right now is some late information that we received based on some difficulties that were had in planning overnight field trip. This is our annual DECA State Conference field trip that is scheduled to occur tomorrow, Thursday through Saturday. There are 2 overnight, so I do appreciate you bringing that back up to the attention. There were multitudes of changes from February till now, and with some difficulties in acquiring chaperones, Mr. Sullivan has been able to acquire 2 more teacher chaperones, Ms. Erin Murphy and Ms. Kelsey Ring. So we have 34 students who would like your vote in approval to attend this overnight field trip beginning tomorrow. Mr. Sullivan has provided me with all of the permission slips and details and all of the lined little details to the school committee policy on overnight field trips, including the medical attestation and all of that. So in order for our students to go, Principal John Bernard has approved the field trip. I have approved the field trip. I have seen the details that go along with it. We need the vote of the committee so that they can attend their field trip tomorrow. I will also tell you, 7 of the members of the 34 students are on our Tewksbury Memorial High boys hockey team. So an additional permission from their parents through the school is that they will be transported back and forth by their parents to attend the practice, to go to the game, and to go back to the conference. So we're wishing all of our students the best of luck and a great learning experience, and the experience is now hinging on your vote.
And just for clarity, this is for the state DECA finals,
This is the
correct?
state.
This isn't a
state
field trip
con-
where we're just...
This is not. This is the annual DECA State Conference. Lots of little snags in the way, but Mr. Sullivan has all the information for us tonight. And as I said, if it pleases the board, we would love a vote to allow them to
Any
go.
questions or comments from the committee?
No questions.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Can I just have clarification on the number of students again, just chaperones?
There are 34 students, and we have 3 teacher chaperones, which far exceeds the
It is past the
required
one,
amount.
yeah.
That's right.
And then are we requiring any sort of a special permission slip for those students that are not coming and going on our same transportation and with
Yes,
the chaperone? Will there be a separate note for?
Yes, and those parents will be providing the transportation and have given permission for their child to come and go because the chaperones have 24-hour care of these students, but they'll be leaving only with their parent and coming back with their parent.
That's my only note that I just need a clarification, because between those hours that they're gone, should there be some sort of anything that happens, we need to be able to account for their whereabouts and not limit them to not be able to have the chance of a lifetime in both places. So
Right.
I would hate to limit them, but I just need to know that legally we have met all requirements. We've exceeded the chaperones. We have that permission in place that they'll be picked up by only a parent. They're not going just as a group.
And the conference is in Boston, so it's fairly close as well.
That was my last question. And where are we going on this DECA?
Yes.
My blessing and best wishes to them.
Thank you.
Their bags are all packed.
I'm sure they are. I just, yeah.
I just got a text that his bag's packed.
Oh, your son's part of it. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Was the will of the committee?
I'll make a motion to approve the DECA States field trip to Boston.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second to approve the DECA States field trip. All those in favor, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye as well. Thank you, Mr. Stadman, for that point of order, and Mrs. Regan.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll get someone to join the Tory Shilly Club.
Oh.
That would be wonderful. I think she's right now probably the only one that I know that's a same season, 2 different event state champion. So it would be wonderful if someone could join her little fraternity with her, so.
Well, we hope so.
Thank you. With that, Mr. Stadman, any matters of interest?
No, I was just going to wish the kids some good time tomorrow. And now that they can go, good luck.
All right, thank you, John. I have a few things. I'd like to first thank our nurses. I'd like to thank their negotiating team and Joan Carey. Is it Carey?
Corey.
From the Teamsters. We had very productive negotiations. As I announced earlier, we reached an agreement last week. The nurses ratified on Friday, an executive session tonight. The committee unanimously voted to endorse to have a new contract. We will enter the next phase, which means will take place incorporating that contract. We can't thank our nurses enough for what they have done over these last 2 years, especially with the pandemic. So a special shout out to them. Also, I'd just like to expand a little bit about Mrs. Regan and the TTA I'd like to thank both of those groups. We met very successfully last Friday. We were able to reach an amicable agreement for both parties. I'm not sure we could have got there without everyone being able to give a little. So I know myself, I'm looking forward to that vote when it goes to the membership. I don't speak for the union. I will say on behalf of the school committee and the district, thank you. We couldn't have all got there unless we did it together. We are certainly looking forward to, brighter days moving forward, and that's what I have with regards to negotiations. I think there's some other groups that are close, and hopefully by our next regular business meeting, we'll be able to announce that we have agreements with other groups as well. I'd like to thank Ms. Gail Johnson. I know she sent a reminder out on behalf of MASC today. If you have not filled out your survey for what you're looking for in the new superintendent, please do so. That email should have hit today. Obviously, if you already filled it out, thank you very much for your participation. The community involvement for the 5 spots that will be chosen by the school committee remain open until Friday, as does the survey, at 5 p.m. So if you still have interest in that, there's another day or two to get that done. And we will be having a special school committee meeting next Wednesday on 3/16 at 3 p.m. We did not have an update on the superintendent search because both the survey and the solicitation, and I think we have a focus group or two still planned, if I'm not correct. We haven't gained all that information, so we will be having a special school committee meeting next Wednesday. There's a lot going on with the election. There's a lot going on getting rooms, getting technology. We broadcast our meeting, so unfortunately 3 p.m. was the best time that we could all get together. And the purpose of that will be to update the community on the survey from our search consulting, and also announce the members who will serve on the superintendent search committee. And then obviously we're also going to probably put one other agenda item on. Mrs. Johnson, if you could take note, please, so we can get the February payroll period ending February 17th. We could add that on for next week's meeting as well, so we can get clarity to that and get that approved as well. And with that, the last official matter of interest I have is to thank the colleagues to my left who I've been serving with for 3 years now. I can tell you this is not an easy job. It's a thankless job, and that's fine. None of us do it for the accolades, but I can tell you on behalf of myself and the other members that have sat here with you, we haven't always agreed, but we've always agreed to come in here and approach this in a professional, honest, and fair manner. We've always put children first. I know it's hard for a lot of people to understand or see that. People are, it's their children, so people, there's that attachment. But I just want to say, on behalf of the committee and the past members that you did serve with, how grateful that we are for you putting yourself out there. Running is certainly not easy. It's not even courageous. It's very courageous to put yourself out in a town where you live, where you have a reputation, and where you have children. And I'm extremely grateful. So.
Well, thank you.
All right.
It's been a pleasure. It's one of those things that was always a bucket list for me, and I feel as though I was honored to work with the constituents that I have been around for these many years, and I just hope that my being on the committee helped just a little bit in the kiddos and the staff of the district, and thank you for allowing me to do so.
You, Shannon? John?
Yeah, I want to thank anyone that's still watching this late broadcast and anyone that's watching in the future. I'll just get a chuckle out of whatever thing comes out of my mouth. But, as my colleague said, even if I helped a little bit out, giving Dave a hard time, or, giving Chris a hard time, or disagreeing with one of my colleagues, again, it's always for, the good of the community, the good of the students. It's not to give other people, a hard time, as my colleagues have said as well. Both Shannon and I haven't had a good time up here at any stretch of the moment. We've had a tough moment, if you will. So again, anyone coming into the seat, it isn't always fun. But I hope the next folks that are coming into these seats will have a better ride, if you will, and a better time. So again, it has been a pleasure. Not always the best time, but it has been a pleasure. But thank you.
Well, thank you both. Sure.
Thank you.
We have something for you too.
Yes, we do. And Kitty, you too.
You get flowers from the committee.
Oh, you. Thank you, John. Okay, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
We have pizza at the next meeting, or?
I would like to also thank you both for
Chick-fil-A,
being very
that's
warm
right.
and
Chick-fil-A.
welcoming. As a new member, you're very warm, welcoming, understanding, as we've tried to learn how to do this job, so thank you.
It's always with the best interest of the students and the staff, right? We did it.
I think it needs to be emphasized too, us three know what we were walking into with regards to COVID. You two got a different job than I think anyone would have thought they signed up for. So just thank you for navigating those hard times. Really respect that and commend you both for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Great, thank you. And our future school committee meeting dates, as I just announced, we will be meeting on 3/16/22 right here at the high school, most likely LG1 at 3 p.m. And our next regularly scheduled school committee meeting will be on April 13th, 2022. It'll be a reorganization meeting and a regular meeting. And the next meeting will be on May 11th and then June 11th. So the future subcommittee advisory committee dates are listed on the agenda. Does anyone have any future agenda items? I guess I have to look to my right because I'm not sure that would be appropriate.
Nope, I'm good.
We should add a whole bunch.
I would like to just, I'm not sure what we're going to have to do, so I'll just put it out there. I think we should look at, for the next regular meeting, I think you're, the elementary role, is that a school committee seat that or are you on as a resident?
So I was originally on as a resident. So Richard Montori is looking into what my seat is for that, and I should have an answer for you by the time we have our special meeting next week.
Okay, great. And John, I think the same thing with Fields? Are you you're on the Fields?
Yeah, Fields.
Committee from the town? Okay. And like I said, I also would like to announce from the public, they're not done tonight. This is their last official regularly scheduled meeting, but they're still on the clock till April 13th, so.
The benefits run out on the 13th.
It's just, yes, the benefits run out on the 13th, John, well put.
The retirement.
Well put.
Right.
All right, Mrs. Demos, one final time.
One final time, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn the March 9th meeting at 8:43 p.m. All those in favor, please signify by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? The chair votes aye as well. Thank you very much for attending this evening.